just doing that little session with you there, once you released that energy or that feeling, it felt so much lighter instantly. So even if you weren't a believer of energy, after that, you have to believe it at some degree. Welcome back to Self-Dom. Today I'm honoured to be joined by Dr. Sarah Jane, the visionary creator of Spinal Energetics, a groundbreaking modality blending Eastern wisdom and Western science to facilitate profound healing through gentle, intentional resonance. Spinal Energetics won global attention when her practice went viral on TikTok and social media, garnering over 10 million video views and making Learn Spinal Energetics a trend with 2.4 billion views. The videos are captivating. Some viewers see clients twitching, crying, or laughing as if their body is spontaneously unfolding. Others barely move at all. These diverse responses reflect the body's individual intelligence and the modality's depth. Dr. Sarah Jane isn't just a chiropractor and holistic counselor. She's also a meditation teacher, energy facilitator, and scholar of psychology, philosophy, and consciousness. Her method combines heartfelt empathy, clinical depth, and spiritual insight, grounding her work in compassionate expertise. I am so excited to dive deep into spirituality and healing today. Welcome to the pod.
That's a serious intro, Dom.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here listening going, what? I don't know what to say.
I just had a little session with you.
Yes.
And I'm so happy we did that before I got to ask you questions, because I have so many questions. And I think I'm probably just not going to even read my notes.
That's not a bad thing.
Because I just experienced a different feeling than I've ever experienced. We'll put a little clip up so that they can see what kind of went down. But in your terms, what is Spinal Energetics and how did you find this tool?
Well, what it is, it's hard to kind of describe in words. I always say that. That's why I don't mind giving the tasters and things prior, because I could give you all the words like, it's Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy merged.
But what's that mean,
What's that really mean to you? And yes, we're working with the nervous system and what's stored in the body. Our philosophy is that the body remembers, and if you aren't processing things or integrating things, it stores in the physicality, but it starts in the energetic field, which is why we work with energy. That's the easiest way to explain it. But why do people care about that? I think people are starting to really understand that there's more to us than just a separate, physical body and, a mind over here. And, they're starting to realise that life and the experiences that they have in life isn't separate from their actual physicality, that there's an actual reference and resonance between, what's happening in your life, your emotions, your feelings, your experiences, and how that works with your body and how it's responding. Whereas we've kind of always been taught it's separate, that they don't mean anything together. So that's probably where my passion is. And how did I find it? Well, very interesting life.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit off mic, but I was like, save it.
Yeah.
Tell us on the mic. Tell us your journey.
Yeah, look, it hasn't always been a good journey, so to speak. And I think anyone who's in this realm, or even yourself who's interested in this kind of work, has to have had some experiences that are really painful in life. And where we've got the awareness that there's pain there and we want to shift it. That's what's really cool about this time, in society. 10 years ago, there wasn't as much interest. I didn't feel. I felt like it was a lot more niche. I used to be like $39 a session when I first started to get people to come and try this, and it was still quite a foreign concept. Whereas now people are actually searching for this outside of there's like nowhere else to go. I've tried everything, so I'll try you. Now people are actually like searching this for prevention and also to make them more, get an edge in life. Like we're getting a lot of CEOs and athletes and things, as opposed to people who've tried everything else and it just hasn't worked. So they've gone to see the strange lady around the corner who does some energy thing. So that's really cool to see the change in that. But I've had extensive traumatic experiences in my life, a lot of beauty in my life too. You can't have one without the other. And this work has literally, I don't want to say saved my life, but reminded me that it made me make lemonade out of lemons, I guess is the best way to put it. And I wanted that for everyone else as well. It's basically what I was I wished was there for me in existence when it wasn't.
So I know that you're the creator of Spinal Energetics, but what was your first interaction with this energy space? And, it's kind of, from what I've seen, it's not like intense chiropractic moving. It's
No.
like soft and gentle and the energy. What was your first experience with that sort of practice?
So basically I started off in psychology and then decided I didn't want to be a psychologist because it felt very diagnostic and it didn't feel like it was seeing people for who they are in the context of what they are. It felt like we were labelling. And so then I finished my undergrad and I was like, that's not it. I was actually in fashion at the time. I was a fashion...
She's done it. I mean, no, you are very fashionable. When she came in, I always expect... Well, I know, but I always expect like my guests to be a bit woo-woo and hippie and she's got this like amazing outfit on and I was like, okay, girl.
Yeah, I loved fashion, but it wasn't meaningful enough for me. So I remember, finishing my psych degree, I did a holistic counselling certification because that felt a bit more well-rounded, where you were looking at people not just as, problems ticking a list, but as what have they gone through in their life? How can we help them? Why are they the way they are and how can we assist them? And that was something important to me. But I was on my lunch break as a fashion buyer and I went on to Seek and there's a keyword search on Seek and I typed in the word meaningful.
I love you.
I'm looking for meaning.
I don't even think people would write that. Or it would come up like join a nunnery or like a mosque. You know what I mean?
Like meaningful. And the only job that came up was for a chiropractor.
Really?
Yeah, and I'd never even seen a chiropractor. And this chiropractor's name was Dr. Carly Axford and she has a technique called spinal flow. But that didn't exist back then. She was a chiropractor. And I applied, basically forced her into giving me an interview that night, went there, got given the job as a practice manager for her. And I just fell immensely in love with it. She didn't do any cracking either, with the idea of chiropractic, not from just a pain perspective, but from changing people's lives perspective. That's what I saw. Like people were coming in for maybe pain, but what transformed them was far greater. And she didn't do any cracking. So I was like, oh, the cracking isn't the thing. We can actually work with the nervous system without having to do that. Fell in love with chiro as a result, went back and studied for 5 years, but always knew that I wanted to work what we call tonally, which is gently, like whether it be gentle touches on the body, whatever you've seen. Other people have seen this within gentle chiropractic as well, where they might use like a clicker or really gentle soft touches on certain parts of the spine. So that's where I first became really intrigued with it. And then I started doing other certifications. So I did Reiki and I was like, oh, what happens when we work within the energetic field as well and bring in the chakras and the energetic centers as well as working with the spine. Alpha alignment I studied as well, which is a technique where they pull energetic lines through your legs, arms and neck. That's similar to what you experienced before with your arm, feeling a very tangible feeling of energy. That was important to me because people in the West don't really believe in energy, so to speak. They like either believe in it or they don't. What makes them believe or makes a skeptic kind of go, there is something here, is that feeling of energy so tangible through their body. So there was a whole bunch of different things I did. Inner dance, network spinal is a certain chiropractic technique where they touch on certain parts of the spine and it does this little wave, but the wave is different to our wave. And Bowen therapy, I looked into that and the idea of fascia and tissues and what's stored in that. And basically just started incorporating all of these different ideals into the way I worked in clinic, and that's how Spinal Energetics was born.
And I think it's so interesting because if you went to a traditional chiropractor, I don't think they would ask you about your family.
No.
Like, they're not asking you about that. And we know that trauma is sitting in your body. It can be your everyday stresses, all the big things like losing a parent. And I think, just doing that little session with you there, you're touching my body, but you're asking about big topics.
Correct.
And then once you released that energy or that feeling, it felt so much lighter instantly. So even if you weren't a believer of energy, after that you have to believe it at some degree. And I think it's bringing those, Eastern and Western medicines together. I think that's what everybody is craving right now. I think people are kind of losing a bit of faith in just your conventional practices because you need to do it all the time. What about releasing it for long-term benefits?
Correct. And that's the thing, like, that I found with normal chiropractic as such. Like, we were, like, let's say the vertebra has shifted and out of alignment. What our goal is taught is that you want to manipulate the spine to go back into alignment, and that's fixing it. Whereas for me, if the intelligence of the body is what shifted that, and we're actually trying to overpower the intelligence of the body and put it back where we think it should be. What's made that move is a lack of safety or a protection, which most of the time is emotional reasons. If you can work with that intelligence and bring safety to it, it shifts it on its own. Therefore, you don't need to go as much. You're not actually trying to fight against the intelligence of the system. And very much in Western medicine, that's what we're doing. We're trying to overpower the intelligence or the lack of intelligence at times that the system's doing. But I'm also very pro of both. So I found, when I went more in the spiritual world, they were very like anti-medicine. And then when I went through like the Western ideas, they're very like, oh, that's woo-woo. I was, and it's a disservice to people. It's a disservice to the clients. If you actually contribute both, traditional and modern, it actually gives people a whole range of opportunity to take empowerment over their health, but get the best of both worlds as well, rather than feeling like there's something wrong with them that they have to fix, and getting out of that kind of dogmatic idea that the physical body or the physical pain in your body is only a result of something going wrong in the physicality. There's no way that what we were talking about before, like the grief with your mum and my mum, that doesn't change the body. There's no way. Our posture changes the physiological system. How could an experience as large as losing your mother not change through here as well? If we're nervous, we get butterflies in our stomach. That shows that there's a connection between the physical and the emotional too. And, people are trying meditation more so now and breath work and all of those things. And what they're doing is they're changing their state of consciousness to work with the meat body that we've all been given, but connect it to the soul as well. The soul is within it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, what came to mind is those studies where people have had a strong injury and then they can't exercise. So then they are visualizing themselves at the gym lifting weights, and they've seen that your body can actually increase muscle mass just by thinking that you're doing the exercise. And I think that shows the mind-body connection. Do you have any studies that you love that really show how trauma can sit in our body? Because I think people are still super skeptical, and I will admit, even when I saw your videos for the first time, and you can literally see people's like they look like they're having exorcism, and I was like, what is this? And I think that is a lot of people are having that when they see it. But then when you experience, well, when you experience, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what are some studies that you'd kind of say to those people?
Look, the studies are they're not necessarily there completely yet. I think it's a new field of interest. But if you're interested in looking more into this, Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Great book.
Is a great book. It's got an insight.
And that's an old book.
It's an old book.
But it's just so relevant.
It's become more relevant now than what it was when he first released it. Peter Levine, his books upon like Waking the Tiger and all somatic kind of experiencing.
Well, the
books.
Somatic stuff is huge now. People are like the class in New York and all of that. It's all about that somatic thing, and I think we don't have it enough in Australia. You're like the first of its kind.
Yeah, we don't have much. And the reason that people, I think, like somatic a bit more is because it looks like the person is in control of what they're moving. Whereas with my work, people think that I'm moving the person on the table.
It's witchy.
Yeah, it looks a bit witchy. Whereas whereas it's not that at all. What I'm doing is I'm encouraging almost like a shake it off response that animals get in the wild when there's a stressor. They just shake it off innately.
Crumble also shakes it off a lot.
Little crumble. Shake it off, and then that shifts the tension build up. We don't do that because of our societal rules. Like there's so many rules: sit still, be quiet, look this way, do that way. But when you see kids and they're younger, they're just moving around on the street. They're just doing whatever. They shift the energy through their body. They're not storing it. Yeah. Whereas as we get older, from about 7 or so, when we start going into more the school system and thinking about more about what people will think of us, we start sitting really still. Even in our workplaces, emotions aren't always welcome. You've got to hold that in and not be emotional. It's business. So our whole society is kind of built around suppression and repression. And that in which what you see on the table is the invitation to no longer suppress. And I'm not moving anyone. I'm not pulling anything. What's happening is we're kind of almost in real life, it feels like a dance between myself and the client. We're co-facilitating an experience that's innate. When they feel it, they're like, oh, that felt like something familiar but freeing and non-familiar at the same time. I think this was always within us. It's just we've forgotten along the way. And now we need a facilitator to kind of open that up initially. But the movements that you see, people continue to do that after the session. And that's what's cool about it, because we're teaching people how to fish rather than giving them the fish. The body, when it starts to feel tension build up, it starts to move like this on its own without me there. And so that also empowers the client and makes them realise that I'm not fixing them. I'm not doing anything to them. This was always within them in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like my chest even feels more open. Like I'm sitting more prouder since the session. So what are some things that people can do after your session? Because I think it's important for people to have modalities that they can take with them. So what do you recommend? And even someone who's listening who hasn't done a session with you or Spinal Energetics, what are some simple tools they can do to kind of release?
Yeah, there's a great tool called TRE, which is trauma release exercises. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
I never have, no.
And basically what it does is it turns on the psoas muscle and it creates a tremoring effect, like a shake it off effect. So a similar discharge of energy that's been built up in our body itself. The cool thing about that as well is that the psoas muscle holds a lot of our trauma and a lot of our emotions, especially females. So to engage that is really cool. That's just available on YouTube. We are coming up with a self-spinal modality as well, which should be released soon. And that way people can, I guess, connect to this work themselves at home and wherever without relying upon a practitioner as well, which is something that's important to me. But after the session, similar things to like what you would do after a massage, but it's kind of an energy massage. You want to drink water. You don't want to do anything too big after. What we did today was a taster, but if I put you through the whole hour, it's almost you got to have reverence for it, and you can't go and do like a hot mat Pilates straight after. You kind of got to allow for the integration period and allow for whatever to come up. Everyone's different. Some people journal after, other people just write down whatever comes up, other people go for a walk, other people have a bath or a shower. It's really, there's nothing specific that you need to do. We kind of trust that the body integrates it and unwinds it on its own. It's whatever helps you connect more to yourself during that time.
And if someone's been masking how they've been feeling for a decade, 2 decades,
and
I'm sure you see it a lot, what are some telltale signs that there's trauma sitting in your body? Do we have all day?
Again, everyone's kind of different, so I don't want to label it like a specific thing, but one of the most common patterns can be there's certain processes that we teach within Spinal Energetics. So one process in particular, having neck pain that doesn't go away, it's chronic, but there's been no physical reason for it. You're getting headaches.
But everyone just says it's because you're on your phone all the time.
Yeah, I don't quite believe that. I think that there's obviously contributors. So being on your phone all the time, having your neck down all the time, or working out at the gym a certain way, that's going to contribute, but emotional contributors are much heavier and denser. And it's also if, say, you were going to get physio, chiro, osteo or massage, that they help for a little bit, but then it always comes back. That's your biggest telltale sign. If something's coming back every time, it's usually linked to an emotion, because physical's a lot easier to shift than emotion. So neck tension, sleep issues, feeling wide but tired all the time, gut issues are usually a sign that there's something going on with the nervous system as well. But pretty much pain for no real reason, or a build-up of tension in joints, especially on both sides, is also a sign that there's trauma in the body. People with like fibromyalgia and things like that, or idiopathic pain disorders, what that usually means is that the Western medicine, what they do is they put you on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety, and that stops the pain. So if that's the case as well, it's showing you as well there's something in the mental and emotional field that's storing and creating pain in the physical.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about type A's having like upper
Yes.
shoulder. I was like, that is me.
Yeah.
I go and get a massage every single week.
Yeah.
And every masseuse is like,
Very tight.
You are so tight. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I mean when I'm going to get a massage every single week. I'm having saunas, but the pain remains. So that is definitely.
To me, that's a signal that there's something emotional still storing in the body. But that's actually contextual too. So considering what you've gone through in the last year, it's not abnormal. Does that make sense? It's actually a normal response. What would be an issue if 5 years later your body still felt like that grief was happening in the present moment? So we don't want the body trapped in a time warp. We want it present. Yeah. So that's the other thing. But chronic pain without causation that doesn't get better over a period of time of doing physical things is a big sign.
What can be the long-term impact of leaving this pain unreleased?
It can go from just not having the quality of life that you'd like to have and have it limiting you to, you know, other disorders that can show up from, I guess, not being optimal in your health for a long period of time. We all know people have been really healthy their whole life and still get unwell. So I'm not trying to blanket that if you do this, everything's okay. We also have our dharma, and whatever's supposed to happen in our life happens to a degree. But why not contribute to the most of our health if we can? And I think a lot of us, the missing piece that we haven't been looking at is energetic health. You know, we're getting the massages, we're doing the saunas, we're doing the breath work, we're doing the ice baths, we're doing all of these amazing tools, but we're forgetting that the most important thing, which is our energy, because it happens in the field first before it occurs in the physical body. So we're missing a huge part of what we're made of. We are energy. So why are we overlooking that just because it sounds a bit woo-woo, unfortunately? So I'm trying to bring it to the mainstream so that it becomes more of a tool, just like yoga became a tool, you know, and that's just not a physical practice. It's a spiritual practice. And by moving the body in physical ways, you're working with the energetic system as well as the emotional system. Like yin yoga is, you know, releasing fascia and emotions in a way that other types of yoga doesn't necessarily do. So the body really is this access or this key to our spirituality and our soul as well. And that's how I look at this work.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your mum, if you're happy to.
Yeah, of course.
For the audience, will you let them in on what happened 7 years ago?
Yeah. So my mum was 68 and she was healthy and hadn't had any long-term health problems. And she rang me one day and said, I've got like a headache and a bit of back pain, which was a bit weird, but my mum had suffered migraines when she was younger, so she thought it was just something coming up again. And she said she'll go to sleep and she'll call me in the morning. Anyway, she didn't call me in the morning. I called her and she didn't answer. I thought maybe she's still a bit sick. Next day, called again, didn't answer. So I started getting a bit worried and, you know, I rang my sister and then she called, she didn't answer. And then by that time, we started calling hospitals to find where she was, and it turned out she had called an ambulance and put herself into hospital, but unfortunately had become unconscious by that point, so they couldn't contact the family. And she had a really, really rare brain disease called acute demyelination encephalomyelitis, which is a bit of a mouthful, ADEM. And what happened is it's almost an instantaneous MS. And what happened is she got these lesions throughout her brain and down to her spinal cord, and unfortunately is quite severely brain damaged now and is in aged care. But that kind of reinforced my belief systems around trauma in the body as well. My mum had just retired, had just given space to her life and had almost been waiting her whole life to live it until that moment. And she had a lot of extensive trauma that she never dealt with in her life, from her childhood to, you know, marrying my dad and all sorts of stuff that occurred. She never saw a psychologist. She never saw a counsellor. She never saw a chiropractor. She never saw an energetic worker. She never did that. She prioritised us more than anything, which is also not great. She never prioritised her own happiness and her own health. And I believe that there's a consequence for everything that we choose in our life. Am I saying that that's exactly why it happened? No, there are neurological disorders and things in my mum's family, but there's also a lot of trauma linked throughout my mum's family. So I think once you have the combination of both those factors, that's when it's even more important to do this kind of work. And that's why, you know, I'm doing as much as I can to try and help others, but also to try and end that, I guess, generational trauma of not dealing with it, pretending everything's okay, and not realizing that there's a consequence for that maybe isn't as tangible today, but will become tangible later on.
Yeah, and I think it's become your North Star to really pursue and share so that you can help as many people, because, yeah, there's that saying that disease is just dis-ease. And I guess I think about that with my mum and getting sick, and obviously your mum and getting sick, and often it is the biggest caregivers or the most giving people that get sick, and people are like, but they were so healthy and they, you know, went to all these charity events and they were doing this. And yeah, I just hope that the next generation become more aware of how important it is to talk about your feelings. And I actually feel really positive in that regard. I think that a lot of people are coming out, and it's something I say a lot, I really only connect to people who have been through hard shit and who talk about hard shit. I don't really like, not like, but I can't connect deeply with people who have just been like flatlining through life.
Surface level.
And been hiding stuff, because you can tell straight away. And I think people want raw. They want real. I think the era of just everything is perfect and fine is gone. And I actually
hope so.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think I remember the conversations that my parents would have over the dinner table when I was young. And I start thinking about, you know, they'd be talking about these people go on these holidays. It was very much those sort of things. Whilst now the stuff that Tom and I talk about, it's quite deep. And it's one of the things that me and him were attracted to each other, was that we both went deep so quickly. Some people hate that.
I love it. I
love it.
I can't live not in that space either. It's almost like, I don't know, like I want to see those parts of you that are imperfect, because that's what makes you you.
Do you wish your mum had shared more of that with you when you were younger?
I think it's not even just for my sake, but for her own sake.
Of course, yeah.
You know, I think it was kind of considered like dirty little secrets, and I'm glad that we don't have as much, or we've been brave to break that shame kind of cycle about sharing, because they weren't like that for no reason. There's a consequence for sharing things like that. A lot of shame, a lot of judgment that came from society, especially, you know, European background and things like that. Whereas I think what we're starting to do really well now in this era is say it anyway. And people are really latching onto that, because it's giving them permission to no longer hide and have to not be who they are, and to also, for women especially, to not be considered selfish, to look after themselves. You know, if you're a mother and you know, it doesn't make you the best mum in the world if you put your kids first all the time. You actually need to do something for yourself too, because it will become an issue later down the track. It was really interesting. Gabriel Mate kind of has spoken a lot about it as well, where women who are caretakers and less selfish, so to speak, are more likely to get chronic illnesses or diseases as well. So they're starting to link behaviour that's not in alignment with who you really are with illness, and that's kind of what our purpose is. Our purpose is to get you back to who you really are, and therefore live in a way that's no longer hiding your soul and hiding the truth. Because if you live a lie, there's going to be a price to pay for that. And it's not that my mum intentionally lived a lie, but if you're just holding everything in, and she was very much perfect as well, like she had to look perfect all the time, speak perfectly all the time. There's a lot of fear in someone who's like that. And I've started noticing that in myself as I'm getting older. For example, I just turned 39 and I'm like, oh God, what's my place in society going to be, because, you know, I'm going to become not as valuable and blah, blah, blah. They're not true things, but they've come from somewhere, you know, and so to kind of fight against that idea and to see that wisdom and intellect and what you have to give is far greater than what society might perceive your gifts to be as a young female is really an interesting time in my life. And I think, yeah, there's teachers everywhere, and my mum is one of my biggest teachers, but it also did teach me that life isn't necessarily fair, which I think is an important lesson. I remember, it sounds terrible, but I'll say it because we're talking about being authentic, but I remember thinking, why didn't this happen to my dad? Why did this happen to my mum? My dad isn't a great person. Why would it happen to her?
But he was probably just honest that he wasn't a great person. Do you know what I mean? He just owned up to it.
He's living in alignment with who he is, though. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that might catch up later down the track in a different way, but he put himself first his whole life.
They're the type that live to 100.
Yeah.
Smoke ciggies, drink beers, like.
But it's interesting just to notice that.
Yeah.
And I notice it in myself that I can be a martyr. I want to help people so much that at an expense of myself. And so, you know, even now I'm not working as much to kind of remember like, no, I need to look after me too, and don't have to always be striving to achieve something all the time, to be significant and all this stuff. But I'm so grateful that I have the awareness around it. And the kind of lives that we live now are very, very different to the lives that they lived. Like, this is crazy. Like, we're sitting here doing a podcast by the ocean.
Yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
They didn't have opportunities like that.
No,
so
it's crazy.
We get to really design, well, not everyone. We the brave ones really get to design the life in however they choose, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, two things that came up for me. The first one was what you were saying about opportunity, is that as women now, the opportunities we have, I feel that my mum really delved into her entrepreneurial spirit in her late 50s because it wasn't a thing for them. And I think she was so inspired by the self-dom journey because she really loved that I could live into my authentic self. Whilst for them, she was like a typewriter. You know, like they had these really traditional jobs. There's probably like 10 job options. You pick one of them. We are so different and diverse. Like, how can you just fit into one of these 10 boxes?
I wouldn't have done well.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And of course you're going to be trying to be perfect and fit into a box because that was the society norm. And the second thing I'm noticing is that you have this level of awareness, and it's really, really inspiring. It's inspiring for me. I'm sure it's inspiring for my audience, where you're like, okay, I need to fight against this social norm. Like how you said you turned 39.
Yeah.
You have this awareness that these thoughts are coming into your head.
Yes.
But instead of believing them, you're going to do the work and find that confidence in yourself. Whilst I think for our parents and for a lot of people, these thoughts come into their head, but there's no awareness that that doesn't need to be your reality. It doesn't need to be your truth.
Yeah.
And that's kind of to me, that's what spirituality is. It's having an awareness of the energy.
Yeah.
And you don't need to accept everything that you hear in your mind.
No. And usually what you do hear in your mind is the opposite of what's true for you in that regard. So being able to distinguish what's really you and what isn't you wasn't as much of a thing back then.
No.
Because they hadn't really done that.
No.
And also they got married so young and all sorts of things. You know, I remember my mum, when she got divorced the first time, she had to have her ex-husband sign off on her rental agreement to move somewhere else. Like, as a woman, you couldn't even get your own rental agreement. Right. So, of course, there's limitations in that. So I just feel very lucky. The life that I've lived is very, very, very different already to the life that she lived. And now, you know, I take her everywhere with me. So even coming to Sydney or going to, you know, Germany in a few weeks, I bring my mum with me everywhere so that I feel that she, and not physically obviously, but in my heart, because unfortunately she didn't really get to do much in her life. She looked after kids and worked. And there was resentment from that, you know, growing up and all sorts of things. She never really did much and she was so excited to kind of retire. But it's like when we go on a holiday, you know, how we get sick. It's when you actually stop and listen and rest that the body actually has time to catch up. And she's just taught me a lot that, you know, if we had a nice dinner plate, she'd be like, oh, we saved that for another time. I don't do that anymore. I eat off the best plates I have. I don't wait for another time. This African safari I'm going on in a few weeks. There's a part of me that's like, don't book it. You're crazy. You don't know anything about this. But I book it anyway because that choice and that courage to do that is something that I don't take for granted, because I don't want to ever finish my time in this world and go, oh, I didn't live. Like, I've still got music in me. That's my worst fear. I don't want to ever feel like I've got music left in me still. I want to do anything and everything as much as I can so that I feel like I've really soaked up the experience in my time here, and that brings me peace in my life, you know? And I think doing this kind of work is a spiritual practice. It's not just a physical practice. Yes, it helps with pain and gut and all that kind of stuff, but those aren't separate to the spirit, because otherwise this work would work on people who have passed away. It doesn't. You need life force. You need connection. You need that. And that life force is what really is the door to who we really are. And to me, what's the point of living here if you're not going to be who you really are? what's the purpose of it? I don't want that for me or for anyone.
Yeah. Well, your mum would be so proud. And
I hope so.
Her upbringing for you was exactly how it was meant to be, because you've turned into such a wise woman and you're really living into the truth that she always wanted.
Yeah.
That's really special.
Thank you.
I want to ask for any stories that really come to mind from people who've done spinal energetics and their healing.
A lot of different ones. So we've had people from, like, maybe not what people are necessarily thinking, but who are in the job that's not for them and they feel like they should be in it. So we've had people from accountants to lawyers to whatever in a stable job because they feel like that's what they have to do, get spinal, and within, a couple of months have shifted careers and seen the possibility of what's in alignment for them. Did they want to do that because their dad said they should do that? Did they want to do it because they thought it was good pay and stable? But what's their soul and heart really want? And then to have them have it's almost like the fear isn't there as much to go after things that are actually there for them. So we've seen people change that. That might seem small, but huge for them. Then we've had people come in as couples, come in for group sessions. We've actually had some couples split up after a session, but then take some time apart and get back together.
Happy
ending, where they've realised, like, hey, we're not actually connected, because it amplifies the truth of what's already there. That's what it does. So it's not necessarily more peaceful after a session. That inner voice that's like, you need to do this, becomes louder. So the differentiation between what is for you and what isn't for you becomes louder. So they took some time apart. They're together and happy, but they needed that time to really work on themselves before they could come back together. We've had things from people having, what can I say, like Crohn's disease, psychogenic seizures, pain for no real causation shift. And I don't want to say be completely gone. We've had some people say that, but that's not my goal ever. But it changes, which means it gives them more freedom in life, more ability to participate in life, to get a different identity and perception of what they are without their illness, without their pain, which is so freeing, especially for young people who have illnesses or sickness, to feel like there's nothing wrong with them is really beautiful for them. Things like eating disorders, things like that, because, again, it's never about food. It's usually a trauma associated with it, and then the food becomes the control. So if you're actually, instead of, teaching them what they should be eating, which is completely separate, that's working with the mind and the rational, to actually dealing with the reason why they're punishing themselves with food is a very unique experience for them. We used to have people go into, the clinic and then come out and get sessions. So they're getting both. Yeah. And that's when I've seen the best happen, when they're using both tools given to them, but a whole array of different stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amazing. We were actually watching Tony Robbins the other day, and the girl stood up and she was there to really tackle her eating disorder, disordered eating, and her mum was with her, and then he straight away went into relationship with dad, and he was just straight away, it's not about the food.
No, it's never
it's
about
you
that.
trying to whatever it was, but yeah, it's never about the food. I always end the podcast with the same question.
Okay.
Which is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think the advice that I'd give to my younger self is kind of like what I found in you as well. There's always been, I don't know if I saw it as a strength, but I'm going to use the word strength, a strength to be who I am and not hide who I really am. Even when other people thought I was weird, even when other people were like, you're not supposed to be doing that, Sarah, I've always just been me. And that was probably the biggest gift my mum gave me. She gave me the freedom to be who I was in this world, which isn't always the case. So I think my advice would be continue to follow that. And that road can't lead you wrong, because as long as you're in alignment with yourself, the world happens and things happen as it's supposed to. And you can't control everything is also something I'd say. I'd like to be able to. But probably another thing is that, even though the grief you're going to experience, the pain you're going to experience might feel, completely overwhelming and heavy at the time, there will be a time again where you see it as part of the beauty of who you are rather than something painful of what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this has inspired you to live into your truest and most authentic self and, to do the work on yourself, because you never know where it's going to lead. And I think that's with your own journey. It's like you delved into so many different things and you've created Spinal Energetics. You're healing people, you're helping people, and basically serving, which is our greatest gift that we can give on this earth. If you love this episode, make sure to share it, tag me and Dr. Sarah, and make sure you follow at Spinal Energetics to learn more. I'm really excited to see the at-home stuff that you create. I think that's going to be really, really life-changing for people. I think so.
Yeah, we wanted to make it more accessible.
I think that's the thing, and people would see what you do and they think, I need to do this big one-on-one session or go to this seminar, but getting a little taste of it that I just had, if you can tap into that, it's magic. That's where the magic happens. So
exactly.
Thank you for making today work.
For letting me come.
Of course, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.